to Education Update on Independent Television, the programs that brings you all that concerns education sector, and of course takes you to the very depth of what is happening in that sector. And I'm your regular host, Gabriel Zakari, and today we shall be touching on something that you agree with me is at the very heart of concern for education stakeholders, and that is we shall be talking about out of school children and also children that are on the streets. Of course, if a child is on the streets, you know that it's either not in school or being well looked after. And if you pass any child on the street and you have any form of concern at all, you'll be wondering, why is this child not in school, especially when it is time for school? And April 12th of every year has been set aside as the International Day for Street Children, and we shall be discussing with a child advocate, and the coordinator of Young Ambassadors Against Drugs and Drugs Initiative. And also there's okay, she will tell us all that, but let me quickly introduce my guests here. Zainab Khalid, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
I particularly don't talk about children without some kind of emotion, because they are helpless. They are people that are vulnerable, if you like. Why did you decide to take up this task, of seeing that children on the streets are being catered for?
Okay, thank you so very much. The Young Ambassadors Against Drug Abuse Initiative is a non-governmental organization that our primary goal is to ensure that we give children, the most vulnerable, to be precise, a sense of belonging, to ensure that at least they have what the normal literacy and numeracy. They are also educated, and then because they are vulnerable, they are victims of they are susceptible to social vices. People can easily lure them into engaging in drugs and other social vices. So we took up this task to ensure that, okay, let's give them that hope when most of them feel hopeless. So over time, we have been collaborating with other relevant stakeholders. Some that do not have shelter, we ensure that at least we have a collaboration with SOS Children's Village
for the International Day for Street Children.
On the streets,
with a solidarity
help
walk.
you out and ensure, okay, at least we provide you with a shelter, and those that need to go to school, we also have been working with the likes of UPEG and Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to also support the little that we do, our little contribution to the society.
Okay, how bad would you say is the situation? Just like a couple of years back, or should I say a year or two, we had that according to United Nations, the number of out-of-school children, it's ranging between 10 to 15 million. But right now, it has almost like skyrocketed to almost 18 to 19 million out-of-school children. How bad is that?
It's very bad because the hope of every nation, lies in the hands of the children and the youths.
Yes, lies in the hands of the children and the youth. And meanwhile, we have the highest number of out-of-school children in the world.
Globally.
Yes.
When you say 19 to 20, are we sure that's even the number of out-of-school children that we have? Because you are talking about out-of-school children. We're not even adding up the number of street-connected children that are on the street. As at 2022, UNESCO came up to say we have October 2022 to be precise, UNESCO came out and said we have 20 million out of school children. Then what are we doing about it? Despite laudable initiatives that government and NGOs and relevant stakeholders are, coming up with, what are we doing that instead of having a reduction in the number, we're having an increase in the number? I guess one of the factors is the fact that poverty still remains a major issue in the country that is affecting this vulnerable group. And if you do not have a data of what you're working with, you cannot address a problem. If you come back to your house and you only know that your wife told you, presently all the children are in school, but we have just 2 of them that are back from the school. So whatever you're going to buy for these 2, your budget is just based on the 2 children that you have at home. But you come back to your house and you realize that you have, I think I have 15 in the house. You're not even sure if it's 15. How can you address that problem? One of the major issues where Nigeria is really facing is the issue of not being able to come up with a data that would address the issue of street connected and out of school children. We have, like I said, laudable initiative. The Sangaya School existed during President Goodluck Jonathan, and then now we have the alternate school system. Very laudable initiative. But if you go to a particular community, you capture this community, you capture that community, you are not even too sure of who you're really trying to help out. So I think if Nigeria would, first and foremost, the necessary, the relevant Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Education, Women Affairs, can work with a National Bureau of Statistics and maybe the donor agencies, because the president is saying we do not even want donor agencies telling us the number of people we have out of school. We want to do it ourselves. If we're doing the national population census after a very long time, I think this is something we should also give priority and capture and know that this is of great importance to Nigeria. By the time we do this, then we'll be able to address the issue holistically.
All right, Barrister Zainab, I almost called you Dr. Zainab. You had a solidarity walk talking about the ministry in solidarity with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and talking about their contribution. We will go on a short break where we will show that walk, and then you would tell us what kind of collaboration you are making with that ministry, particularly to see that we reduce the number of street children.
In recognition of humanity and to provide voice for street children, Nigeria marks its maiden edition for the International Day for Street Children with a solidarity walk by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in collaboration with Young Ambassadors Against Drugs Initiative. Some of the street children share their stories.
Started begging because there was no shelter for me, and my mom was unable because she's not an educated woman.
Shame seeing my fellow street children don't go into school or don't have clothes to wear. I don't like it. I need the ones standing representing the president, all those, to help our street children so that they can eat at least 2 times a day. Building free.
And stakeholders recognize the need for the children to be catered for.
Include them in whatever we are doing and then give them the special protection they desire.
Because they are vulnerable. So we want that change, and then we want Nigeria to have at least a data of how many children do we actually have. If you have a number, then we know where to start from.
April 12 is usually observed as the International Day for Street Children to provide a voice for children that live on the street so their rights cannot be ignored.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it is Education Update on Independent Television, and I am still with Barrister Zainab Khalid, the National Coordinator, Young Ambassadors Against Drugs Initiative. All right, and before we left off for break, we're talking about your interaction and relationship with the humanitarian ministry. So how would that help in seeing that the situation of out-of-school children and street children particularly are reduced?
Okay, we came up with this partnership agreement to work with the ministry. The ministry saw it as a good one for us to work with together, having seen what we've done so far when as it relates to street-connected children. So, as I said earlier, the ministry has the mandate. It's whatever they do has to do with humanity, and this is it's Ministry of Humanitarian and Disaster Management.
And this is already an emergency. Yes.
On its own, when you're talking about street-connected children, we're looking at a time bomb that it's already, well, people would say about to explode, but as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing has exploded, because these are children who are vulnerable, who are being used as insurgents, as bandits, when it comes to kidnapping, when it comes to anything that is negative, they are seen as agents of destruction, not agents of change. So our partnership with the ministry will go a long way in addressing this issue, because like I said earlier, it's about addressing this issue holistically. Over time, what we do at YADE is we meet these children one-on-one. We apply these 4 guiding principles of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Permit me to talk a little about that. These 4 guiding principles, you have Article 6 that talks about every child has a right to life, survival, and development. So when you look at street-connected children, yeah, they're in this world, but they have to fend for themselves to survive, which is wrong. And if a child has to fend for himself to survive, how will he develop? This is where the ministry also comes in.
Sorry to interject you there. That could be seen also from a larger perspective. Just a couple of weeks, I had the national coordinator for homegrown school feeding program, and yes, he was here live in our program. And just to let you know that the ministry itself is doing something to bring children out of school, and the homegrown school feeding program, it's key and laudable. Is it that such programs are not doing enough?
To a large extent, it takes us back to what I just told you about data. Because if you pick some few schools, they are doing a wonderful job, but it's not like they are really extended to the whole, all the people, all the relevant stakeholders, because these people are also should be seen as stakeholders. That's the children that need this support. Because yesterday at the event, some of these children that are from Sangaya schools, some of these children who are Almajiri said, initially when Sangaya school started, they were really happy because they came out from their villages, and when they came to Malam's place, they were told that, okay, you would now combine Western education and your Quranic education. And when they started, before you know it, it's now a whole, it's like a shadow of itself. So their appeal yesterday was about, why can't this home feeding program extend to their Malams, to where they are to, or if this alternate school system that the ministry is
to their Islamic schools,
so that at least, because we have children roaming the streets trying to look for what to eat, let the Malams register with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Yes, but when I said it's all encompassing, the homegrown school feeding program, it does not only focus on the children alone, but their parents, and the issues of economy, at least any parent who would send his child on the streets has one issue or the other to handle when it comes to how to look after his kids.
But do they really have issues? Because if you go to the farm and you're buying your farm products, Who are the people behind it? Is this same people who complain about they do not have, who send their children to a malam to take care of their
Would
children?
any parents deliberately send his or her child to the street?
That's a good question. Are they doing it deliberately? Because if you send your child and you're not giving the malam a support, a form of support, is it not a deliberate thing? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm sending my child to a school. I chose to send my child to a school. I can decide to teach my
But
child.
that will also bring us to the issue of culture, the Almajiri culture itself, and it's something that is sensitive. It's like it's part of the training in that Almajiri setting that the child should go and beg for alms.
Which is wrong, which is expected, we're expected to correct that. That is where the ministry comes in.
But you know that there would always be beggars on the street, whether adults or children.
If there are beggars on the street, it's because we chose to take it as okay, it's a norm, it's a thing for us. Why would you go to Saudi Arabia and not see beggars on the street?
So, but also, I don't know much of Islam, but there's also...
I said there will always be beggars.
Yes, but it's
Why?
also said that alms should be given to the poor and beggars. How will you locate them?
To the poor.
Yes, is it their homes?
In your office, you know that there's someone that at least you're better off than that person.
Okay.
In your community, you know that there's someone that you're better off. Why won't you take your alms to that person? If you narrow it down to, okay, we must have beggars because we must give alms to those that we consider, why would you even use the word beggars?
Okay, let's go to also one of your brainchild, the Street Children Parliament. What's it all about?
Okay, to give louder voice to the plight of street-connected children, on the 4th of June 2020, we approached the ECOWAS Parliament. And because in 2015, ECOWAS had a program in Senegal, if I'm not mistaken, and they promised that they were going to end streetism in 5 years' time. Because it's a known fact that children come from different ECOWAS countries, not just ECOWAS countries, from different African countries to look for means of livelihood. So we now took it upon ourselves. We approached them that, hey, you said you were going to end this thing in 5 years. And this is 5 years. Instead of, we're having an increase in the number of children that are coming from different ECOWAS countries and African countries, and they are still begging. What are you doing about it? So they got interested, and we had that program. It was a summit. All the parliamentarians were around, and then the ECOWAS Parliament, Street Children's Parliament was inaugurated. And the issue behind it is giving them that voice. Let it be that they will be a part of, they are also part of decision matters that affect them.
Yes, giving them voice beyond your advocacy, don't you think also there should be penalty for parents who send their kids?
Definitely. That lies, that's something that the National Assembly or ECOWAS, the parliamentarians in ECOWAS, that is something they should take up. We are all only here to give that voice and also encourage the children to give a voice. But the thing is with Nigeria is every time issues that concerns these children, not just street connected children in general, like the Child's Rights Act, who even asked the children what they really wanted? And after 10 years, the Child's Rights Act is expected to...
Does the child knows what he or she wants?
Yeah, to a large extent. Does your
You
child
think
not
so?
know his color? The color he wants? Your child will know his color. But the thing is, over time...
Most decisions are made by the parents.
Yes, because you love blue color. You insist, if you go to buy something for your child, you tell the child wants white.
But the,
You're telling him that, no,
but the parents' influence cannot also be overlooked,
It can't be overlooked, but the child also should be given a right. It shouldn't be the same old thing. That's why we're getting it all wrong. Because if we're signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, that 4 guiding principles I was telling you about, say, even in our Constitution, it states that children should be part of decision making in matters that affect them. And then when we take decision, it should be in the best interest of the child. Are we really doing that? In your home, you feel you're the boss. Whatever you say, it's law. And your child is trying to put you through that. No, sir, this is what I want, Daddy. And you're telling him, no, I have decided that it's rice I want us to eat, and that is what, it's final. And that's why we have been getting it wrong in Nigeria.
That's how, while you said we've been getting it wrong, what do you think we should take away, especially as Nigeria marks its median edition of the International Day for the Street Children?
Okay, let me correct this. It wasn't a maiden edition. We have been doing it for over 7 years. Every year, and the essence of this program is to draw government's attention to the fact that there is a...
But just coming to the limelight.
No. Last year, we walked from National Human Rights Commission to National Assembly, and then we ended up at Ministry of Women Affairs. The records, it's there. The year before, we did the same thing, different. So every year, we come up and draw government's attention to the fact that there's a day set aside for these children. And you can see that there's a form of discrimination, because May 27 now, I am sure ITV will get lots of press release from different government agencies, from NGOs talking about, Children's Day. So who are the children we're talking about? If you talk about child labor, if you talk about child abuse, if you talk about child trafficking, these are issues that affect street-connected children. And the theme for this year says, keeping street-connected children safe. How can you keep them safe if you don't even recognize a day set aside by the United Nations to celebrate them? So we need to get it right. We need to involve them in decision-making on matters that affect them. We need to also celebrate them. We need to provide an enabling environment for them to thrive. And because every child has his or her own potential. But if you do not believe in them, then you can't get the best from any child.
Okay, we're almost running out of time, and I must answer this question. The policymakers, especially in this part of the world, the government, do you think they are doing enough to see that children are kept out of school, out of the streets?
To be fair to the government, yes. To be honest, to be fair to the government, yes. One of the mistakes we make in Nigeria is we believe everything is a government thing. What are you doing? You have a program, a laudable program. You're contributing your quota. I'm contributing my quota too, through our NGO. So what are you also doing to change the narrative? If you look around you, there's no way you leave your house every day and you will not meet with one street child. Have you been able to, for once, just tell yourself, let me find out from this child, what do you want? What can I do to change the narrative? But every now and then, if the government bring in initiative, laudable initiatives, we also have a way of crushing such initiatives. Corruption comes into play. And then one of the problems
by the
we have,
same operators, when you talk of
operators,
yes,
who are not, because government is you and I. We are the government.
Exactly.
When government brings in policy, we just feel, okay, it's the president that is the government. It's the state governor that is the government. No. We all have a role to play. And then we must insist on this thing called implementation. Most of our initiatives, we do not implement policies and laws in this country. And that's why it's really affecting us. And then sustainability.
The government too is also the enforcers of the law.
Have you made it, have you taken it upon yourself to see to it that, okay, on my own, what I will do is to ensure that government enforces this law? That's where we all come to play. We all have a role to play. So it's not just about government. Sustainability is there. The next government that is coming, we don't, Bola Ahmed Tinubu says he has, he's going to change the narrative in the area of education. Is he going to continue with the alternate school system? Or when he comes up, somebody else will now say, oh, we don't need the alternate school system, and they crush it.
All right, Barrister Zainab Khalid, we must thank you sincerely for coming to the program. The issues are broad, and we cannot take less than 30 minutes to discuss it. We look forward to seeing you again, in Education Update, and bring us updates on what you are doing to see that these children are kept from the streets. Thank you very much for all you are doing. It's not an easy task, when people are looking for where to mine gold and precious stone.
We are investing.
Yes. So thank you, Zainab Khalid, the National Coordinator, Young Ambassadors Against Drug Initiative, on Education Updates.
Thank you so very much for having me.
All right. Viewers, that's about the size of the program this week. Until we come your way again with another topic, we say thank you for being with us.